आनन्दकरप्रसन्नं प्रेमस्वरूपं ब्रजभावयुक्तं योगीन्द्रमीड्यं भवरोगवैद्यं गुरुं कृपालुं प्रणमामि नित्यम्। On the occasion of Sharad Purnima and the appearance day of Bhakti Yoga Rasavatar Jagadguru Shri Kripalu Ji Maharaj, greetings to all the wonderful divine souls in the 14 abodes in this universe of the four-headed Brahma. Let us start with the chanting, and then we shall savor the Leelas of Sri Maharaj. Mere Guruvar mere गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही हो न सपने हो न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही हो न सपने हो न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही हो न सपने हो न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही हो न सपने हो न्यारे।
हरि की कृपा ते मिले गुरुवर प्यारे, गुरु की कृपा ते मिले गिरिधर प्यारे।
हरि की कृपा ते मिले गुरुवर प्यारे, गुरु की कृपा ते मिले गिरिधर प्यारे।
हरि की कृपा ते मिले गुरुवर प्यारे, गुरु की कृपा ते मिले गिरिधर प्यारे।
हरि की कृपा ते मिले गुरुवर प्यारे, गुरु की कृपा ते मिले गिरिधर प्यारे।
ओ गुरु की कृपा ते मिले गिरिधर प्यारे।
गुरु की कृपा ते मिले गिरिधर प्यारे।
ओ हरि की कृपा ते मिले गुरुवर प्यारे।
हरि की कृपा ते मिले गुरुवर प्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही हो न सपने हो न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही हो न सपने हो न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही हो न सपने हो न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही हो न सपने हो न्यारे।
गुरुवर आत्मा गिरिधर प्यारे, गिरिधर आत्मा गुरुवर प्यारे।
गुरुवर आत्मा गिरिधर प्यारे, गिरिधर आत्मा गुरुवर प्यारे।
गुरुवर कह बड़ गिरिधर प्यारे, गिरिधर कह बड़ गुरुवर प्यारे। प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
ओ मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
गिरिधर तो है प्राण हमारे, गुरुवर मेरे प्राण प्यारे।
गिरिधर तो है प्राण हमारे, गुरुवर मेरे प्राण प्यारे।
निर्मल मन छ गिरिधर प्यारे, निर्मल मन कर गुरुवर प्यारे।
निर्मल मन चव गिरिधर प्यारे, निर्मल मन कर गुरुवर प्यारे।
ओ निर्मल मन कर गुरुवर प्यारे।
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 मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
गुरुवर गिरिधर संग भजु प्यारे, या गुरुवर को ही भज प्यारे।
गुरुवर गिरिधर संग भज प्यारे, या गुरुवर को ही भज प्यारे।
मम गुरुवर मम गिरिधर प्यारे, तुम दो रहु नित हृदय हमारे।
मम गुरुवर मम गिरिधर प्यारे, तुम रहो नित हृदय हमारे।
तुम दो रहु नित हृदय हमारे।
तुम दो रहो नित हृदय हमारे।
तुम दो रहु नित हृदय हमारे।
तुम दो रहो नित हृदय हमारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
ओ मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
मेरे गुरुवर मेरे गिरिधर प्यारे, दो एक ही न सपने न्यारे।
बोलिए जगद्गुरु श्री कृपालु महाप्रभु की। Yesterday we were with Sri Maharaj Ji at the time of his appearance in the planet Earth in the year 1922 in a little village called Mangar in Uttar Pradesh. And we saw how, hiding his divinity, he behaved in so many simple, ordinary ways, and yet when the time came, kept on revealing the purpose of his descension in our earth abode. So, we discussed how he went into the jungle and then went to Vrindavan and was discovered there and came and started doing Jeev Kalyan, welfare of the souls. And then he returned back to Mahu. So close to Mahu were two cities called Maheshwar and Mandaleshwar. Maharaj, he would often do kirtans there. So he loved natural settings. Just go into the jungle and have kirtan in the jungle, sit by the riverside. There's a river in that region of India which is considered very holy by the people, the Narmada River. And there are lots and lots of ashrams along its banks, all the way unto the sea. Maharaji would take his devotees by the side of the Narmada, and there they would sit and do kirtan. Once, Maharaji had his little group, and they were sitting by the riverside. They were doing Akhand Kirtan, continuous chanting. Now, another characteristic of this river Narmada is that it floods suddenly, catching people by surprise. The news came that Narmada has started bulging. A little higher up was a small hermitage called Paramahans Kutir. The Pandit from there came down to the bank and said to Maharajji, the Narmada has started swelling. Please vacate this spot and come up to my kuti, my hut. So Maharajji said, really? He took a stick and alongside with the edge of the river he drew a line. And he said, Narmade, if you cross this line, I will see to you. And he said, continue the kirtan. The kirtan continued. The Narmada was crossing over in other places and restraining itself on this point. The kirtan was going on. The news spread nearby, there is some Mahatma who has come, who has stopped the flow, the overflow of the Narmada. So slowly, the crowd in the kirtan started increasing. Maharajji asked, what is the matter? Why do we see new people in our kirtan? One devotee said, Maharajji, you have stopped the Narmada river. The news has spread to the village. Maharajji said, in that case, we need to vacate from here. He never believed in winning over people's faith by a display of miracles. Accidentally they would get displayed, that was a different matter. A saint of his caliber has all the powers by the grace of God. So what is there in displaying something extraordinary? But that kind of faith is of a low category. So Maharajji said, let's go. All the devotees, they climbed up and there was a cement embankment. So when they had reached up, Maharajji sat down on the embankment with his feet hanging down. And then the river started rising up. It rose, came and touched his feet and then receded. From our Vedic perspective, these physical features also have souls in them. So a river has a personality as well. And like everyone else in the universe wishes to engage in devotion and receive the blessings of great saints. So why was the Narmada to miss out on the opportunity to get the dust of the lotus feet of such an astonishing descended saint? So Maharaj went back to Allahabad, Lucknow, Pratapgarh. These cities of eastern Uttar Pradesh, they became the centers of his preaching for the next few years. He would not sit on a stage and give lectures. He would just have satsang in people's homes. And the Kirtan was the main thing. Occasionally he would give talks. But when he would speak, he would close his eyes and start speaking. And then not care how many people were sitting in front. His lectures would easily go beyond 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. People would get exhausted, go back home, come again, and Maharaji would still be speaking. His record was a 17-hour lecture. So once, Maharaji himself, I've heard it from him, that some Westerners, Germans and Britishers, they said, somebody can speak for so long and still not feel physically, mentally exhausted. We can't believe it. We need to test it out. So Maharaji said, sure, you can test it medically, but there is a condition. If you find my energy level has not dipped, you will then accept the glory of Radha Krishna and begin devotion to them. They said it's a done deal. They put their instruments on Maharaji. He closed his eyes and started speaking. After 6 hours, they measured him. He was just the same. So they took some system of remembering the names of Radha Krishna and began their devotion in accordance to their commitment to Maharaji. In those days, when he would speak, he would use logic and illustrations, but he would never quote from the scriptures. So his devotees, they would think that Guruji knows a lot, but we are not sure whether he's read the scriptures or not. Now his lifestyle in those days was quite like an avadhut. He would go empty-handed wherever he went. So if he went to somebody's house, empty-handed, then when he would bathe, he would take that person's clothes and put them on. Whether they fit properly, they don't fit properly, doesn't matter. Next person's house, next set of clothes. And he would never eat with his hands. So whatever people fed him, he would eat. And again, either he would fast for 5 days and then suddenly eat for 4 days together. It was such an unregulated kind of life. And yet one completely immersed in divine love. So they would start chanting, and every day Maharaji would go into Bhav Samadhi. He had, I mentioned to you, a group of advocates and judges who were his satsangis in Allahabad. One of them was a judge of the Allahabad High Court, and people used to call him Justice Sinha. He became a devotee. And Justice Sinha came to Maharajji one day and said, Maharajji, the Chief Justice of our High Court is going to retire. So I want that I should be now the next Chief Justice. Maharajji looked at him and smiled. Whatever he thought of was his personal matter. The Guru doesn't want the disciple to be entangled in worldly things. Or the Guru may have seen it's not written in his destiny. Nevertheless, a few days went by, and Justice Sinha had an argument with the person who was called Kathju. This Kathju was a Kashmiri Pandit very close to Jawaharlal Nehru, the then Prime Minister. So, Kathju, on becoming annoyed with Justice Sinha, got him dismissed. So he was suspended. Now Justice Sinha thought it's all because of Maharaj. Maharajji did not want me to become the Chief Justice, that is why it has happened. And that resentment festered so much that he thought, I will do anything to hurt Maharaj. So one day, a judge came from Odisha, and he came to know that they are all satsangis of Maharaj. He said to Justice Sinha, I wish to have his darshan. Justice Sinha said, why not? He made him sit in his car and he took a pistol in his pocket. If I get a chance, I will finish him off today. So he took the car to the house of Lakshman Swarup and said, go inside and have darshan. The judge from Odisha went in, was speaking, and the topic came, and he said, Justice Sinha is outside. Maharajji, knowing everything, said, he's outside, call him in. Justice Sinha came and with great anger said, yes, I have come. What is the instruction? Maharajji ignored. Justice Sinha said, please come with me. I wish to take you for a ride. Knowing what was there in his pocket, Maharajji still went with him. He took Maharajji to a garden. Let's go for a walk. They went in. He asked Maharajji to sit on a bench. And then he kept on going up and down, up and down, up and down, thinking hard. And after half an hour, he said, come, let's go. So took Maharajji and dropped him off. And then in the evening, he came and told Lakshman Swarup, you know what? My intellect had got so corrupted, I had a pistol to kill him today. But there was some huge power that was preventing me from even lifting my hand from the pocket. So Lakshman Swarup scolded him that first of all, you should not have gone to your Guru for material things. And second, why do you say that this happened, your suspension happened because of the Guru? He may have seen it in your destiny that you are not going to get that post, and that is why he kept quiet. You should ask him for the real wealth, the wealth of love for God. So Justice Sinha realized his mistake and went to Maharajji and apologized. And Maharajji, completely as if nothing had happened, he just embraced him and said, it is all right, forget it, let us move ahead. This is the extent of positive thinking that is there in saints. They are not problem-oriented, always solution-oriented. So Maharajji had a devotee in Pratapgarh who was a central excise officer, and he had a huge bungalow. His name was Mahabani. So Maharajji would often stay in the house of Mahabani when he would go there. And sometimes for a month he would be there. Now whenever he would reach, devotees would get the news he has reached the house of Mahabani. They would start pouring in. And Mahabani was so hospitable. He had ready sets of beds that whoever comes, they don't need to ask. Everything will be arranged. So I have heard this from his daughter. She was a teenager in those days, and she has related what used to happen 75 years ago in their house. So she said, my father had instructed that take care of everyone. And Maharajji's instruction to us was, you will not sit in the Kirtan, you will take care of all the guests who come. So Mahabani used to arrange for special soap and special spoon of ghee in the dal of everyone who would eat. And the Kirtan would begin. At 8 o'clock, Maharajji would sit down in the lawn, and then the Kirtan would start. It would go on till 12 midnight, then Maharajji would go to sleep. And this Mahabani was such an elevated sadhak, unknown to anyone except for Maharaj. He would go to the back lawn, and there with a tanpura in his hand, he would continue his sadhana till 4 a.m. He would sing only one line, Deenaki sunlo deenanath. O rescuer of the destitutes, please bestow divine grace on this fallen soul. And he would continue singing that through the night. So, there are many, many sweet pastimes that I have heard he displayed in that house. Urmilaji relates to me that once Maharajji, he was at that time young, and he would be extremely informal in his interactions with people. So Mahabani would sometimes even scold him. He would not see him as somebody on a very high pedestal. So one day Maharajji said, let me read everybody's hand. So people started coming with their hand one at a time. Maharajji was reading. And then all of a sudden he called Urmilaji and said, somebody has come outside, go and take a look. Urmilaji went out of the house, and she found a person who seemed like 14, 15 years old in age. And his complexion had a bluish hue to it. He had matted locks and a Trishul trident in his hand. And she came to him. He said, you know that man who's reading people's hands? Can you call him outside? So Urmilaji came back to Maharajji and said, he's calling you. Just listening to that, Maharajji jumped from his seat and ran out. And then in a few moments, he came back and said, Shankarji has come, Shankarji has come, go and have darshan. They all ran, but Shankarji had left by then. So many such sweet pastimes used to happen. She related to me that once Maharajji came home, the parents had gone for some marriage to another city, and at home were just these two teenage daughters. At night, Maharajji said, I will sleep outside. In those days, there were no air-conditioned houses in India. It was common in the summers to sleep in the open. So these two sisters said, Maharajji, there are clouds gathering, it could rain, your sleep could be disturbed. Why don't you sleep in tonight? Maharajji said, it's all right. You do your Guru Seva. You stay awake and check. If it seems to you it's going to rain, you lift my bed and bring it into the veranda. They said, Maharaj Ji, first of all, the bed is so heavy, and you are even heavier, big frame, tall personality. How will we lift it? Maharaj Ji said, you will be able to do it. All right. Now he went off to sleep. And in just a little while, these two girls, they saw that the clouds are gathering more and more. They are becoming darker and more ominous. What to do now? One sister said, Maharaj Ji said, if you think it's about to rain, carry me in. Well, let's give it a try. So they put their hands and they found it's the lightest thing they have ever lifted. And they brought Maharaj Ji in. But then they found the clouds, they started scattering and going away. Until there were none left. They said, why should he feel hot in the veranda? Let's carry him out. So they went and carried him out. But then after they put the bed down, the clouds again started gathering. So then they said, my God, it could rain any moment, let's carry him in. She relates that all night long they kept on carrying the bed into the veranda and out into the open. So these kinds of sweet leelas of his. Now, Maharaj Ji in those days was not giving, like I said, too many lectures, and if ever he lectured, there were no scriptural quotations there. Some time went by, and Maharaj Ji, when he would be in his room with the door shut, you could hear sounds coming inside as if there was a party going on. People are discussing in deep, deep voices. A conference is happening. So Mahabani Ji, the owner of the house, he would ask Maharaj, who comes into your room? Maharaj Ji would avoid the topic. So he kept on insisting for a few days, you need to tell us that what are these sounds of personalities in your room? Are they ghosts or spirits or what? Angels? Maharaj Ji said, the scriptures come, the personified Vedas, and they urge me that in this age of Kali, the age of hypocrisy and deceit, the present times, the true meaning of the scriptures has got lost. And people are confused by the thousands of concocted solutions and pathways being shown. So a sage of your eminence has descended into the world. They come and request, please reveal the true purport of the Vedic scriptures for the benefit of humankind. Maharaj Ji said, now the time has come. I will have to reveal scriptural knowledge. So a little more days went by, and he said, Mahabani, this room you have above on the second story, I will go there. I need to write a book. So put a sheet of papers and a pencil and a jug of water. I will go there every day from morning, stay there till late evening. Nobody should disturb me. So for 9 days, Maharaj Ji would go to that room in the morning and stay there till late evening and then come out. That was the time when he wrote the Prem Ras Siddhant. His primary text is the Prem Ras Siddhant, which is the Gagar Me Sagar. It is like the pot in which he has filled the whole ocean, the essence of the Vedic scriptures. He wrote that in those 9 days. Now, Urmila ji, being a teenager at those days, she was a little restless, and Maharaj ji had said, nobody will come to disturb me. So she and her sister said, let's go and see what happens. They went up, the door was closed, watertight. They put their ears to the door, what's happening? And they heard deep, deep conversations, as if some people are sitting there and discussing. So they estimated that it was the scriptures personified that used to come. And in discussion with them, Maharaj ji decided what would be the best way to reveal such esoteric, sublime principles in a way digestible to ordinary souls of the world at that time. In 9 days, the Prem Ras Siddhant was complete. Now, he went to Allahabad to get it printed. And he used to lead such a simple life. He was to himself sit on the bicycle and go to the printer for the proofreading. So the person in whose house he was, he said, Maharaj ji, let me take you. Maharaj ji said, all right. So they both sat on his vehicle, and he was taking Maharaj ji on his two-wheeler. But when they reached the press, he found that Maharaj ji is not behind. So where has he gone? So he went into the press and said, I brought him here, but now I don't see him. The owner of the press said, but he came here and did the proofreading and he left 15 minutes ago. What are you talking about? What? He came and left? How can this be possible? So he went to the house of Lakshman Swarup, who used to be the major host of Maharaj. And when he reached there to complain that, look what Maharaj ji has done to me, he's just disappeared, he found Lakshman Swarup sitting outside his door with a stick. So what is the matter? I am going to teach Maharaj ji a lesson today. He had promised he'll come to my house and he is not coming. He doesn't realize how much it pains us, this waiting and longing for him. So when they were talking like this, they heard Maharaj ji sound from inside. So he said, Maharaj ji is in your house. They went in and saw Maharaj ji was right there. So they said, how did you come? Maharaj ji said, how did I come? I crossed you and came. Did you just come? No, I have been here for 20 minutes. Your wife has already fed me the nashta. The wife said, yes, he came a long time ago and I have fed him. They said, who can understand you? Nevertheless, Maharaj ji's goal was now to create a platform and credibility for revealing the import of the scriptures. So he organized a convention of saints called Santa Sammelan in the holy place of Chitrakoot, associated with the pastimes of Lord Ram. So the invitation was sent to all the prestigious saints, the Pandits, the Bhagavad Gita-kars, Ramayanis, Bhagavatkars, Gaddidhari, Jagadgurus, etc. of that time. And he arranged this Sant Sammelan with the sponsorship of the Raja of Chitrakoot. And he took his devotees there. There were about 30 of his satsangis. So there he arranged for the stay of all the saints who were to come. The list of 70 saints is still available. So Maharaj ji, with so much of humbleness, he took on the responsibility of Swagatadhyaksh, one whose duty is to welcome people and to take care of their needs. So any saint who would come, Maharajji would go with the chhatra, the umbrella, barefoot, and escort that person to his quarters and ensure that the arrangements were complete. So on the first day of the Sant Sammelan, Maharajji began the program as the Swagatadhyaksh, the person welcoming. He said that the most eminent saints of India have gathered here. And we have a huge audience that is all eager to receive knowledge from such personalities who are undifferentiated parts of the Lord Himself. He said, we have 4 questions on which we would like to be illumined. So he placed before that assembly 4 questions that would require knowledge of all the scriptures to be answered properly. The first question was that there are so many scriptures all presenting different viewpoints. So what is, please reveal the unity between the teachings of these Vedic scriptures to show us that they are actually manifesting from one source. Similarly, a second question was that previous acharyas have presented so many pathways to the Supreme. Advaitvad, Vishuddhadvaitvad, Vishishtadvaitvad, Dvaitadvaitvad, Achintya Bheda Bhedvad. So we wish to understand the beautiful similarity between the teachings of all these saints. Please reconcile their messages for us. And similarly, a third question was, in this age of Kali, when the atmosphere is not pure, people's health has deteriorated and lifespans have reduced, their chitta vritti, the mind, is agitated. They cannot strive for extremely difficult means of purification. What is the importance of devotion to Lord Ram and Lord Krishna and the path of Bhakti Yoga in this time? So those questions he placed were such that they needed deep knowledge of all the scriptures. Now, the saints who had come, they've all had their limited scholarship. One would speak on the Gita, the other would speak on the Bhagavad or the Ramayana. The audience would repeatedly send a message to the stage that those questions which Kripaluji asked, we wish to hear the answers to them. So on the 4th day, one of the saints, Pathikji, who had come from Kanpur, he got a group of them and with great annoyance he took the mic. He said, nobody can answer these questions. We challenge Kripaluji himself to come and discourse on them. At that time, when the announcement went on the PA system, Maharajji was standing behind the crowd. When his name got announced, he walked between the crowd all the way to the stage. Now mind you, till then he had never given a lecture from the stage. So he came and took the mic. He said, I am only Swagatadhyaksh. You wish to give me the seat of a speaker? All right, I am willing to do this service, but I have one condition. There are 17 days of the Sant Sammelan remaining. I will speak every day in the end from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, and you all will sit and listen. Maharajji's strategy was that if he is the last speaker, then he gets unlimited time. There is no need to ration his speech. So every night, Maharajji would start speaking, and for his speech, the crowd would swell even more. Now when he would speak and he would quote from the scriptures, use worldly examples, such crystal clear logic, people would be spellbound. And Maharajji's satsangis who had come, they would listen and say, is he our Maharaj? We didn't even know he has such knowledge of the scriptures. And then at the end of the convention for that day, people would retire. Maharajji had arranged for some boats in the river Mandakini that passes by Chitrakoot. So he would take his satsangis onto boats, and then they would sing Hare Ram Kirtan till 2 a.m. After that, they would all go to retire, and by 6 in the morning, Maharajji would be in the service of the saints who had come. So this went on day after day after day. Now, amongst those participants was the Vice Chancellor of the Kashi Vishwavidyalaya, the Banaras Hindu University's Vice Chancellor. His name was Shri Giridhar Sharma Chaturvedi, the knower of the 4 Vedas. He got extremely impressed. And he went, and after it was all over, he went back to Kashi, which is the city of Vedic scholars. And he said to them, I heard this young boy there. Maharajji's age at that time was just 32 years. He said, I heard this young boy, and his knowledge is deeper than anything I've ever witnessed. Those members of the Kashi Vidvat Parishad, they said, he's growing old and that's why he's speaking things like this. The next year, Maharajji arranged a similar convention in Kanpur. So there was a Phool Bagh Maidan in Kanpur. There in the Phool Bagh Maidan, Maharajji arranged for the Sant Sammelan, and in order to ensure that there would be a big gathering, he first kept his public speech there for 15 days. And after his public speech, the Sant Sammelan was to begin. So, inviting people to the convention, an invitation was also sent to the Kashi Vidvat Parishad. So this Kashi Vidvat Parishad was the supreme body of Vedic scholars. It is a little inactive now, but in those days it was fully active. In the biography of Swami Vivekananda, it's mentioned when he returned from USA, he also went to the Kashi Vidvat Parishad. So those scholars took it as a challenge. They said, he seems to be challenging us. They appointed the most erudite amongst them, Raj Narayan Shukla, Shat Shastri, the knower of the 6 schools of philosophy. And they told him, on our behalf, you go and teach Kripaluji a lesson. So Raj Narayan Shukla, he reached by train to Kanpur. From the railway station, the day before the convention was to begin, he sent a note to Maharajji that I was in Kanpur and I'm about to go back. I'm writing to you from the station. But I have got a few days free in hand. In case you are interested, send a vehicle for the Sant Sammelan. Maharajji came to know. He said, go and get him. He was brought from the station and hosted there. The next day, the Sammelan began. Maharajji took the mic. So this scholar had put a condition for his participation. He had said, I will speak after Kripaluji speaks. So when Maharajji took the mic, Raj Narayan Shukla went and sat down in front with a paper and pencil in hand. So this is the style of the Vedic scholars, that I'll note your mistakes and when I get a chance I will cut them. He closed his eyes and Maharajji started speaking. Maharajji announced, because the people there had been hearing him for 15 days. He said, today's lecture will be a little different. There will be less worldly illustrations and more quotations from the scriptures, but you will understand. And then when he spoke, his talk flowed like the holy Ganges. At the end of it, Maharajji said, we are honored to have in our midst a great scholar who has come from Kashi. He is Sri Raj Narayan Shukla Shat Shastri. So when Raj Narayan Shukla's name got announced, Shuklaji sent a note to the stage that my health has deteriorated today, I will not speak. Maharajji read the note as well. Later on he said, I will speak tomorrow, but I will speak before Kripaluji. And now, when the time came, Maharajji went and sat in front and Shuklaji took to the mic. Maharajji took a paper and pencil. All right, now tit for tat. But Shuklaji started praising Maharajji so much. He said, we scholars, you see, just to be a scholar doesn't mean you are a saint. Scholar means the theoretical knowledge is proficient. So, if there is only theoretical knowledge and no sadhana, it can lead to a growing of pride, which often happens. So he said, we scholars of Kashi do not accept anybody as a knower of the Vedas easily. We test, we engage in debate, we taunt, and only after having tested in a variety of ways do we acknowledge someone's learning. But I wish to tell you, I heard the discourse by Kripaluji yesterday and I am so impressed. I want you all to recognize his divinity, to appreciate the importance of the simple wisdom that he is presenting and to benefit from it in your life. Maharajji told him, he invited Maharajji to Kashi, and Maharajji said, all right, you arrange for a meeting of your Vidvat Parishad and I will speak there. So he returned and they called over Maharajji's secretary to finalize his talk there. They told the secretary that when we have this assembly, we only discuss in Sanskrit. So if Kripaluji speaks here, he will speak in Sanskrit. Is it acceptable? The secretary said yes. He came back and said to Maharaj that, I have committed you will speak in Sanskrit. Are you able to speak Sanskrit? Maharajji said, if you have given your commitment, I will speak in Sanskrit. So he went from there to the house of Mahabani and told him, Mahabani, the scholars of Kashi are calling me, should I go? Mahabani said, Maharaji, these people are notorious. They tried to steal the Ramayana of Tulsidas. They insulted Kabir Das. Swami Dayanand Saraswati, the founder of Arya Samaj, they fed him broken glass and killed him. Stay away from these people. Maharaji said, they can make me Jagadguru. You become Jagadguru? Maharaji was only 33 years, or just turned 34. So he used to have Vatsalya Bhav to Maharaji. You become Jagadguru, go and see your face in the mirror. Maharaji said, all right, your daughter will decide. He had a 5-year-old daughter. So he wrote on a slip, Kashi jaye, go to Kashi. He wrote on another slip, na jaye, don't go. He made little slips and he put them in front and said, okay, pick. The girl came and she picked. Maharaji opened it, said, Kashi jaye. Ha 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 ha! So Mahabani ji said, you have done some mischief here, let me do it. He wrote the slips, placed them in front and said, okay, lift, my child. Again she lifted, go to Kashi. So Maharaji said, it is decided. He went from there to Lucknow. He had a devotee called Jagdish Srivastav. He wrote on his harmonium in Sanskrit, Jagadguru Kripaluji. He predicted. Now, he arrived in the month of January in Kashi. These scholars had called him, but they were not so sure whether he was actually so learned or not. So they kept his public speech for the citizens of Kashi, and then they kept his lecture in the Kashi University, and then they invited him to the Vidvat Parishad. Now, the day of the lecture, 2 scholars came and an ambassador, so that used to be a big car in India. And Maharaji sat in between, and these aged scholars sat on both sides to escort Maharaj. On the way, one said, I have heard you have come to do Shastrarth with us. You have come to debate with us on scriptures. Maharaji said, of course not. I have come only to have your darshan. But you scholars have insulted many saints in history. I have come to settle the scores. So when he reached that assembly, a list of 100 scriptures was read out to him, that these are the prominent scriptures in the Vedic tradition. You will quote from these while speaking. And any scholar has the right to get up at any time and challenge your statements. Maharaji, his mischievous nature, rather than being overawed by the situation, because he was so confident where the divine power is attached, there is no question of any uncertainty. He started off in schoolboy Sanskrit. Simple, ordinary Sanskrit, which people read in school. The scholars started wondering, what kind of a person have we got out here? But after 10 minutes, he started utilizing sophisticated Sanskrit. Now, Sanskrit in any case is just like in Europe, how many people are able to speak in Latin? They may read it in schools, but to speak in it is a different matter. Same thing. People read Sanskrit in India, a little bit in schools, but you say speak in Sanskrit, hardly anyone can. So Maharaji now started conversing in sophisticated Sanskrit language. And after a few days, he started using Vedic Sanskrit. Now the Vedas have their own grammar. So there's Panini Vyakaran grammar for conversational Sanskrit, written Sanskrit, literary Sanskrit, and there's Hemachandra Vyakaran, Saraswat Vyakaran, many grammars in Sanskrit. So many of the scholars were not even understanding what is he saying. After a few days, one scholar got up and said, Bhakti Yoga Samanvitam Naiva Kritam. You did not reconcile Bhakti Yoga with the other paths. And the head, Narayan Ghise, he said, sit down. Are you even understanding what he's speaking? Now here Maharaj Ji sent a message. Because his idea was that this title of Jagadguru is nothing for him, but it gives credibility for the others to believe the knowledge that he is going to present. He sent a message to his devotees, I'm going to come to Allahabad as Jagadguru, make arrangements for the reception. Now here 10 days had gone by and the scholars started discussing what to do. The head, Narayan Ghise, he said, either defeat him or else you have to honor him. They said there is no question of defeating somebody whose knowledge is not human knowledge. So then said, okay, let's honor him. So they decided when the Kashi Vidvat Parishad had been established, one of the clauses in the constitution was that if ever we find such a personality whose knowledge is vast like the ocean, then we can honor him as an original Jagadguru. So prior to this, there had been 4 Jagadgurus in Indian history. The first was Adi Shankaracharya, who went around India defeating all the scholars in Shastrarth. And that is why they honored him as Jagadguru. And the second was Nimbarkacharya, who established the path of Dvaita-Dvaitva, dual non-dualism. And the third was Jagadguru Ramanujacharya, who established the path of Vishisht Advaitvad, qualified non-dualism. And then Madhvacharya, who had come 700 years prior and who established the path of Dvaitva, dualism. So after a gap, now there was a gap of 700 years. And the entire body unanimously honored Sri Maharaj Ji as not only Jagadguru, but Jagadguruttam. Dhanyo manya Jagadguruttam padai soyam samabhyarchate. That we believe he is the supreme amongst the Jagadgurus. So, after that, as Jagadguru, Kripaluji Ji Maharaj started touring all of North India, giving lectures to tens and thousands of people, and slowly disseminating the philosophy of divine love. So, Maharaj Ji always believed in keeping his organization small. He wanted quality and not quantity, because moment quantity increases, quality suffers. So whenever the quantity would increase, he would create a test where half the people would run away and again select few would remain. But then when the time came, I saw before my eyes, when I first came to Maharaj Ji's mission, it was so tiny. And all of a sudden it started becoming huge. And we could see what he is doing, because a saint of his caliber doesn't think of lifetime. The prachar happens for ages. It's just like when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came on the planet Earth. At that time, not too many people benefited from his teachings, but today they have spread far and wide. The Maharaj Ji said, the philosophy that I am presenting will be good, will benefit the souls, be relevant to them as they start maturing from the other paths. It will be relevant to them for the next 1,000 years in the evolution of their soul. So we've seen anybody who has been exposed to his knowledge has said this without any doubt, that they've never heard such a sublime philosophy. So like I said, that Maharaj Ji did not believe in miracles, but a few would manifest like this one. He would never read any scriptures. And yet he would keep quoting the verse, the canto, the chapter, and then another miracle. If ever you wash his feet, that water, his charanamrit, you could keep it for 20 years, it would never putrefy. Even till today in the houses of his devotees, they keep the charanamrit, the water having washed his feet, as a treasure. That property which is there in the Ganga, the river Ganga, if you gather it and keep it for 1,000 years, it remains like that. And the reason is it has come from the feet of the Lord. Now a saint like that, who could freeze the water in its purity, we only can imagine what was his supreme divinity. That he never spoke about it and he never declared it, but his devotees who experienced his grace in a variety of ways in their lives, they were of the firm opinion that 500 years ago, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come down and taught the path of Radha Krishna Bhakti, which continued to nurture the souls, but there was still much left to say and to take forward. So the same Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came down after 500 years as Kripalu Mahaprabhu, and he took those teachings to the next level. So we will see that step by step, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized Radha Krishna Bhakti. He emphasized devotion. And Maharaj Ji said, that's great, you are doing devotion. Now do selfless bhakti, nishkam. You are doing kirtan. Now ensure that your mind is in God, because you have been doing kirtan for 500 years now. Move on. So we see that those teachings, the purest, selfless divine love, he taught it, he guided the souls to it. And as he wishes, these teachings in his divine plan, when the souls are prepared for it, will spread for the benefit of all of humankind on this planet Earth. So on this day of Jagadguruttam Jayanti, we offer him our deepest gratitude and shat shat koti koti naman at his lotus feet. Boliye Bhakti Yoga Rasavatar Jagadguru Shri Kripalu Ji Maharaj ki. Shri Radha Krishna Bhagwan ki. Radha Krishna Mandir ki. Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe. We will be having the bhog to Shri Maharaj Ji now.